Good morning and welcome to the show. My name is Sean Smith.
And my name is Prescott Phillips, and this is Brew City Bug Talk.
Welcome back. This is episode 3, and on today's show we have award-winning, best-selling author, the man with the mohawk, my co-host, Mr. Prescott Phillips.
I hated that one. That sounds like I'm never on the show.
Oh my God. Put your ego aside. You're on the show. Everybody knows you're co-host of the show.
Well, kind of.
Okay, so just to set the record straight, Prescott is a member of the show. He is a co-host of the show. We both own the show. We both talk. These are both our stories. Does that make you feel better?
Yeah, I feel way better. Okay.
Well,
what's this episode about?
Okay, well,
besides me.
Well, this episode is about your award-winning, best-selling author series. Not a series. Yeah. Not award-winning.
Not best-selling.
Not best-selling. But one of the coolest books on the market right now.
I'll agree with that.
How to Rebuild Volkswagen Air-Cooled Engines, written by Prescott Phillips. So let's jump into it. How did you decide to write this book, or what made you want to write this book?
The opportunity to write this book fell into my lap, basically. I wasn't the original author that was supposed to write this book.
Really?
Another local shop here in Milwaukee, the owner of it had the opportunity to write a book about rebuilding Volkswagen engines. And when the rumor went around town that he was going to write this book, I thought to myself, man, that's a great opportunity. I mean, it would really help his shop out. It would elevate his status basically in the Volkswagen industry to another level. And I thought, well, that's great. I mean, I was really happy for him. So it was just a rumor went around, and I talked to some people. Yeah, he's writing a book. I'm like, cool. So time went by, and housekeeper at the time actually did freelance bookkeeping for this shop that the owner was going to write the book. So I got, I asked her about it. She says, oh yeah. He signed a contract and was supposed to abide by the contract, have so many chapters written by such and such a date and all that stuff. So time went by, and you didn't really hear a lot about how the book was going. So my housekeeper came one month to clean, and I asked her how it was going. She said, well, guess what? I just wrote a check back to the publisher for the advance that he got to write the book.
Does she still work for the shop that we're not going to name?
Yeah. No, she doesn't work there anymore.
Okay.
She just did the bookkeeping. She, accounts payable, receivable, that kind of thing.
She's not going to catch any backlash from her.
She shouldn't. She really didn't do anything wrong.
Okay. Make sure we're covering everybody's bases here.
Yeah, right. It was just I was disappointed when I heard that. I'm like, man, I get it. Writing a book can't be easy. I've never written a book, at the time. She says, yeah, I cut a check back for his advances, and he kind of bailed on it. I'm like, that's too bad. So, and I'm like, well, I'm going to do some research into it, and maybe I'll reach out to this publisher and see what, maybe he wants me to write it. I don't know. I'm not a writer. So I emailed, pretty sure I just went online, searched out the publisher, and emailed just blindly that I build engines. Been doing so most of my life. I built, hundreds of them. If you're looking for a writer for this book, I'd be interested. I just left it at that. I didn't think they'd even get back to me. But the publisher got back to me and explained to me what was involved in writing. I says, I'm not a writer. I'm not a photographer. I'm not anything. I just have a passion I could never write a book about anything else but this stuff.
Did they lay out a time frame for you, or were they like, we need this by this date, or?
Oh yeah, when you sign a contract with them, it's very, very regulated. And I told the guy, I says, hey, during the summer I race a lot. What's the timeline on this thing? I probably won't be able to do any writing or anything during the summertime. And they were intrigued. And the publisher really has nothing to lose. None of this money is, it's all against your royalties. So they really don't have anything to lose by having somebody try to write a book. I mean, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Now, were you under the same contract that, like, if you didn't do XYZ in a certain amount of time that you...
If you're late on stuff, there's not much they can do about it. You can just say, hey, I'm working on it. Deadlines get pushed back all the time. Okay. So, but yeah, the contract is pretty regulated. They give you so much for signing the contract and so much for writing the first thing, I think, is the table of contents, all the chapters and what the name of the chapters are and how many there are. And that's the first thing. And then next thing they want is the first chapter written in, completely. And the book has to be so many pages and so many photographs and so many words and so many captions. They have all that regulated minimums. You got a minimum amount of words per caption, minimum amount of words per chapter, minimum words per book.
Oh, wow.
It's like 40,000 words.
So when did you actually start writing the book?
Okay, I think the contract I signed, pretty sure I signed it in 2017. I signed a contract with them, and we stretched it out. They usually have a 12-month contract because they want to put out a new book I think they said they wanted 2 new books a year or something like that. So, but I told them that during the summer months, I probably wasn't going to get a lot of time to write. So they stretched it out to an 18-month contract. I started in 17, and then I finished it in 2019 is when the book came out. So it was 18 months of writing, and I had to hire a photographer, which ended up being a friend of mine, Mary Beth. Super good. I mean, she's a car girl. She's a very good photographer. She did it for next to nothing because we became friends and all that. So
back to when you got this contract, and what was your game plan? Like, did you sit down? Did you talk to people? Did you have an idea? Like, how did you prepare to write this book? I told them,
like I said, it was a great opportunity because the only other book out there about rebuilding Volkswagen engines is an outdated book. Was written in 1987. It's written by a guy named Tom Wilson, which I don't know who he is. At the time, that was the only book that was out when I started writing the book. I go, this is my competition here. This book written 3 decades ago, and it wasn't a very well-written book to begin with. I mean, it covered too many models. They threw in Type 4s, and when I wrote my book, I'm like, I'm going to concentrate on the most popular model. The book covers 40 horse up to 1600 dual port. So 40 horses came out in 61.
Yeah, on the cover of your book, it says 1961 through 2003.
Yeah, so that would be a 40 horse. And a 40 horse, essentially the same as, a 1600 dual port.
When you're rebuilding it.
When you're rebuilding, all the stuff you're looking at
is
the same, maybe not interchangeable, but it's relatively the same. Things aren't drastically different. Like the older book, the book written by Tom Wilson, covers Type 4 engines. And if you ever have a chance to look at that book, it's super confusing because he keeps interjecting Type 4 stuff in with the Type 1 stuff. And it's like, what am I looking at here? What's this picture? All of a sudden he still throws a picture of a Type 4 motor in here right now. And even for me, it's confusing. I can't imagine somebody that was actually trying to rebuild something looking at this book and going, what am I looking at? It still sells. I mean, you can still buy it. It still gets printed. It's owned by the same publisher that published my book.
Okay.
HB Books. Motor Books bought out HP Books, and so they're all under one. And if people still buy it, they'll still print it. It's good enough for
that.
They
just wanted to bring something newer into the updated version of what's out there.
Yeah, when I tell people when they buy my book, I go, if you read every page and follow every instruction to the T, there's absolutely no reason by the time you finish the book that your engine shouldn't run and run good if you follow every single step. And that's what I wanted, and I knew there's nothing like that on the market. There's no step-by-step books on how to rebuild anything.
Now, how long did it take you to actually...
So it took me 18 months to finish the book, finish the contract, and it was brutal. I mean, I would spend all weekend behind my computer and writing and notes and pages and captions and pictures. I had to take a picture. I had all these photographs that the photographer took, figure out what the caption is to it, figure out what in order it has to go, and then make it all make sense. Now, the publisher has a format to follow. It's the chapter and then the number of the photograph in the chapter. So I followed their format because that's what their software needs to see. But I think it turned out great.
Back to writing the book. I mean, obviously, you didn't do this all in one day. Your photographer wasn't there one day.
She came in stages. Like when we tore down the motor, she was here all day when I tore down the motor. When I got all the parts cleaned up, some of it was staged,
Well, it has to be. I mean, you're trying to tell a story.
Yeah, and she's not going to come over and take 10 pictures,
Yeah.
We had to do this on weekends when she was available, and because she was doing this on the side. We had to game plan, okay, this weekend we're going to take all these pictures, and I'll have everything staged. So I actually had the engine that I retore down, and I had another engine for pictures. You can't tell a difference in a picture. One case looks like the other case. I made sure they were identical. One cylinder head looks like the next cylinder head. So
yeah,
I actually ended up, when I was done with the whole book, I actually ended up with a complete running dual port, then another complete long block.
Yeah, 2 motors while building this whole entire thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I sold the long block pretty quickly, and I sold a complete turnkey to
Do you know who bought them? Or I mean,
a local guy.
local guy. Is he still running them?
Yep, yep. He chimes in every once in a while and
He
says, "Yep."
knows he has the.
Oh yeah, he's all proud of it. I gave him a copy of the book and signed it and all that stuff. So he's got the book motor. So it's something, you know.
No, that's kind of neat. Like,
I mean, who has their engine documented
Yeah.
in hundreds of thousands of books? Nobody does, except this guy.
no, that's really cool. What happened to the long block? Did that go to the same person, or?
No, I sold that. I can't remember if a local guy bought it or not.
And now, where'd you get? Did you just have these motors sitting around, or?
I needed something kind of complete to tear down. I really didn't have anything like complete. I could have staged something, but my brother's Baja Bug had a motor hanging off the back of it, so he could build the rear cage to go around it and all that. And it was just hanging there, but it was a core motor.
Rumor is you still owe him a motor for.
Yeah, that's
that
what he
motor.
says, and that's
I'm throwing
fine.
that out there.
I'm still waiting for him to finish his Baja Bug. So I told him when he gets it done, I'll build a huge motor for it. So you know. So
basically, you're hoping that he never gets done with it. So.
Well, it's been a while, so I don't, he's not really working on it, so we'll work something out.
And that's your brother Pete, right?
Yeah, that's my brother Peter. He's
All
my
right,
oldest
Peter,
brother.
get on that Baja.
Yeah.
You got a motor. If you're listening.
Yeah, you can pick one out if he wants. But I'm building a Baja right now too, so that's gonna have a giant motor in it, 2332 with IDAs on it and stuff. So.
You're in hopes to have it done for this next car show season, or what's going on?
The Baja is just kind of a fill-in project when I got nothing better to do kind of thing, or when I feel like working on it. It's just nothing
a
to
side project.
Yeah, it's just something to distract me from, other things.
From building other motors.
Yeah, well, when you're just burnt out on something, it's good to just look at something else and work on something else.
That makes sense.
It's this is a budget build Baja Bug just out of stuff people gave me and stuff I had laying around. So it's fun. It's fun because there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. It just I let fate decide what parts I'm going to put on it. Whatever I come across. Oh, I got to
find cheap enough on the internet.
Well, I tell people I'm looking for a set of seats, and it's a late model car with the TP, with the 3-point seats in it. I'm like, anybody got anything? Because Rabbit stuff fits it, Mark II, Mark 1. So yeah, I found a set of, I think they're Jetta seats, and they were pretty nice. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm using.
And now the motor for that you just had sitting around, or is that something?
Yeah, I built a 2332 out of just some stuff I had laying around. I had bought a couple engines. Anytime somebody's selling a project, I get it cheap enough, I'll pick it up. So I built a 2332 out of some, like a long block, I think it was. Change of cam, change of compression, and,
The transmission for that? Something you had laying around, or something you built specifically for this?
Yeah, it's nothing special. It's an IRS car, so it's just got a Type 1 IRS with super diff and just a little bit of love to it.
Do you want to tell the story about how you came about the axles for that, or the?
No, we'll save that. We can save that for another show.
Oh, that's such a great story.
It is a good story, but we'll go over the Baja some other episode. This one's just going to be about the book and all that.
We're talking about. That's right. We're talking about your book.
Yeah, we're way off
way
the
off
track.
topic.
Yeah,
right.
way off.
So back to your book. When did it come out? Between the time you wrote the book to the time you finished?
Yeah, so I started writing it in 17, and it came out in August of 19. And to date, I'm guessing I'm right around 6,000 books. I think the original run was 5,000 books, and it's gone into its second pressing. So it's on its second run already, which is good because a lot of books don't make it past that. The publisher said if they print out 5,000, how long it takes to sell those 5,000 determines whether it's going to go to a second pressing or it's going to go to digital format only. If the 5,000 sell quick enough, they print another 2,500. Depending on how fast those sell, they might just keep going at a couple thousand at a crack. But once it gets to a certain point and they never leave the warehouse, then it's never gonna go to a repressing. So
what was your initial feedback from the Volkswagen community? Did you have people outside of the initial area calling you up, talking about the book, or any good, bad feedback, anything?
If you go on Google reviews, that all worked out. I got like 4.8 stars or something. And the only bad reviews had nothing to do with the book. Like one guy says something about the the mailman left the book out in the rain and it got all soggy.
Oh, that's a terrible review. Then I'd give you 1 star for that.
Yeah, and it gives me 1 star. I'm like,
you wrote a shitty book. It's clearly wet.
Yeah, it's clearly wet and waterlogged.
Yes, that's your fault.
So that's kind of stupid how Google Reviews does this stuff. But no, it's all been positive. I've had people buy multiple issues of this. They bought my book. They want to buy another one for either a friend of theirs or one to keep nice and one to keep greasy. I've had that story. It's been nothing but positive. When I went to the second pressing, I should probably find that part in the book. They gave me an opportunity to
revise the book
to fix any typos. So if you have a first edition, you will know it has a first edition. If you open your book to page 85, there's a little chart here on how to calculate compression ratio. It says in there the 4 sizes covered in this manual are 1200, 1300, 1500, and 1600. Well, they changed that to horsepower.
1600 horsepower.
Yeah. So and I didn't. That's not. I knew
clearly who was ever editing this did not know what a.
I had it right, motor. And I know I had it right because a 1300 isn't 1300 cc's. It's 1286 cc's. So in parentheses, I put 1300. But right above that is 1200. Like 1192 is 1200 cc or 40 HP. So they just added HP to all the cc numbers. So that got fixed on the second pressing. So you have a second pressing if it doesn't say 1600.
So nobody horsepower. Called you out on Google that you were making 1400 horsepower motors?
Somebody did.
All they did was say that, you left it. It was left out in the rain, so this is a terrible book.
Yeah, they're not on any of the Google reviews, but somebody pointed that out to me. I didn't find it on my own. As pretty funny. So you'll know you have a second pressing if it doesn't say 1600 horsepower. And the other way you're going to know you got a second pressing is the price tag won't be on it anymore. Yeah, if you have a first pressing, it says it's $29.95. Well, the price went up in the last 3 years, so the second pressing doesn't have any price on it. The book sells good. You can get it pretty cheap on Amazon or eBay. There's people selling brand new copies for $25.
I actually used this guide to help me build my motor, and it was actually really neat going through here because you list all the special tools that you can need, but not just the ones you have to buy. You show how to make a lot of these tools.
This is a budget-minded. Volkswagen people are budget-minded to begin with.
So you're saying we're cheap?
Yes. And I'm right there with you. So, I'm cheap. Most Volkswagen owners are cheap. They want to do this the most economical way they can.
That's very politically stated. I like it.
Yeah. So there's ways to get around not buying specialty tools, like an oil pump puller, for example. You don't have to have one. You don't have to pull the oil pump. You just have to pull 2 of the oil pump studs out, and then when you split it in half, the oil pump just falls out. So there's a tool you don't need to buy if you just do something else.
I'll tell you this much. I went and rented a valve spring compressor tool, and it worked. It worked fine. But in your book here, you talk about making one out of a C-clamp and then
yeah, I love that C-clamp thing. I use it.
I actually used yours when I was here working on some heads that you had.
Yep.
And it worked much better than the stupid tool that I rented.
The tool, you need 3 arms to work the tool usually, and there's no way that tool works with high performance stuff with dual springs or Chevy springs or whatever. Most of them are made so poorly that you can't do it. But a C-clamp. Man, C-clamp's a C-clamp.
See, once we get our shit together, we can start selling them, and we can use the show to promote them.
No, you can already buy the C-clamp thing. They make it's aluminum. And
but you can't buy a Prescott original.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to make something. Somebody's just going to go to Harbor Freight and buy a C-clamp.
Damn, you're always limiting our marketing for the show here.
That's fine.
We need to open that door.
That's fine. We're not here to
what, make money?
Yeah,
okay.
this
Prescott, you heard it here. Prescott doesn't want any money from the show. I will accept all funds and royalties. So please send them my way.
Yeah, this big money making venture called a podcast. Unless you're Joe Rogan, you're not making a dime.
We are the next Joe Rogan here.
We're the Joe Rogan of Volkswagen Podcast.
Volkswagen Podcast. So when we were preparing for the show, I went, I wanted to do my research because I didn't want to just come on the show and talk up your book. So I actually contacted some friends and I got copies of some of the other engine building and other books pertaining to Volkswagens. Some of them don't relate, but I wanted to bring in just because I have the Idiot's Guide on How to Keep Your Volkswagen Alive, and which is it's a completely different book because it covers the whole entire aspect of a Volkswagen, where yours is just about rebuilding a motor. And then I also got the red book that you had mentioned earlier, is How to Rebuild Your Volkswagen Air-Cooled Engine. I went through the book. I went through them both. And as a novice, as somebody coming in and not knowing how to build a motor, hands down, side by side, your book is a better book. Just for the sheer fact of the simplicity of your book. Obviously, colored pictures. It's updated. The red cover book, we'll call it, is just over word. Like
it's very wordy, and it's very.
They were writing a book. They were writing a book to tell a story.
Yeah.
You are writing. You wrote a book to show how to do something.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between an author that's writing a book and a mechanic that's writing a book.
Yes, yours is definitely mechanic, user friendly, opposed to the very wordy book. And like you said, you go through there and it jumps around. Like you're doing one thing, and then all of a sudden he's talking about something else. And if I'm in the middle of building an engine and I'm looking at this part, and all of a sudden I'm like,
that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, where's the next step? Let's follow the steps. So that's one thing I really appreciated about your book was the start to finish layout. Like you go step by step, you cover the whole process of like, okay, next you're gonna want to do this, and you break it down. You have pictures. If you kind of know what you're doing and you just wanted to follow along the pictures as a guide, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can actually like you read through the whole process, and then you give a picture step by step of the process.
Yeah.
I thought was very handy.
Yeah, it's step by step, picture by picture. There's people that buy the book and they can still follow along just the pictures and a limited English, and they follow right along. So it's not that hard. If you can count to 10, I think you'll do pretty good. When I wrote the book, I had to buy all the parts. None of those parts were donated or anything. So I had to rebuild that stock 1600 out of my own pocket. I had to buy
Which you then sold for money.
Yeah, but then I had to sell it, right?
Yeah.
1600 dual parts are super easy to sell. Everybody trusts them. Everybody knows what it is. Even people that don't know what they need know that at least they need that.
It's a super reliable.
It's the go-to. They just want it. Their Volkswagen to put down the road. Perfect. Even if it's older, or even if it was a 6-volt car or whatever, you can install a 1600 dual port in just about anything. That's all covered in the book. How to convert it to a 6-volt car, that's all covered there too.
Yeah. Everything you'll need for that too, because it is a bit of a process converting your motor converting your car from a 6-volt to a 12-volt.
Yeah,
there's a process there.
Yeah, there's a process. Yeah. You don't just buy a 12-volt battery and go. There's other things that change, and it's if you buy a car, say you buy a car with no engine, and you want to put a 1600 dual port in, it's going to be 12 volt, and it's a 6-volt car. That's a good time to do it. You got the engine out, you can change it. It's going to need a 12-volt starter, and you're halfway there already. So you buy a new 12-volt battery, and you change the light bulbs, and you fix the windshield wipers so they're not going into hyperspace when you turn them on, and that's about it. People think, the wiring's not going to work. No, the wiring is not a problem.
Actually, I read that the wiring's
thicker.
Yeah, it's stronger.
It's better. So you already have the thicker wire where it needs to be, a headlight switch and all that stuff. So. Yeah, but change the light bulbs, you're pretty much good to go. Yeah, so so I cover a little bit of 12-volt, 6-volt conversion thing in the book. So yeah, and there's other things in there, how to install electronic ignition, things like that, and how to fix broken studs, how to fix a stripped out spark plug hole, things like that.
Another thing I like about this book is you basically have a guide on how to build an engine start stand.
Like most books, there's a bunch of stuff in there it's
off topic, essentially.
Yeah, but it's off topic. It doesn't really pertain to the title of the book, but it's going to be useful. That's a pretty big question online at most forums or whatever. There's always something. How do I start this thing without putting it in the car? I want to start this thing with engine stand. They want a startup stand. We used to take along our engine starting apparatus to. Somebody's house, if they say they're selling an engine and they say it runs, I'm like, well, if it runs, I'll give you this. If it don't run, the price is going to be different.
So you'd bring the engine stand to call them out?
Well, I have a portable one. It's just a sawed-off transmission case with a starter on it, and it's got some buttons and switches. And pretty elaborate system, but we used to drag it around with us. So
no, that makes it handy.
And even if the car isn't going to run, say the carburetor's missing or something's missing, at least you can crank it over and do a compression check. You'll know if this thing's even going to light off. Right? It's the bargaining tool. It takes you a little bit, and the guy might not even let you do it. You can just roll the dice if the thing's $100. You're never going to go wrong it's always going to be worth $100. So especially if it's complete, if they're wanting some money for it and they say it runs or used to run or whatever, but in the book, I go over how to make a pretty elaborate engine run stand that you can break in your motor or test a motor. It's nice to test a motor out of the car because if there's an oil leak or you want to adjust the carburetors or anything, it's all right there. You don't have to stand on your head or anything like that. Oil leak you can fix quick enough.
Okay, now to something that's not in your book. This isn't about how to build a performance motor.
No, I didn't. I don't.
There are a lot more steps when building a performance engine.
Oh, sure.
That is not listed in this book.
And everybody asks me when I'm gonna write.
Where's your next book?
Well, they hounded me. The publisher, they liked this book, and they're hounded me about writing a high performance one. And I'm like, man, I don't have the time to dedicate it. I don't have.
At the time, you were still working full time.
Yeah, I worked full time. I was married. I had responsibilities, and I knew how much work it was to write a book. If they would have contacted me and I never wrote a book, I probably would have said yes. But I knew what it would entail, and I knew what I wanted this book to look like in my head. It wasn't going to be like the book I already wrote. It wasn't going to be one motor specific.
The performance motor.
If I was going to do
a book.
Yeah, if I was going to do a performance Volkswagen building book, I would go over the certain things to look for, certain combinations that go together. If you have this, you should have that. Just different things. But I would go through specific things that people would buy the book to. They want to know how to clearance for a stroker crank. They want to know how to make it bigger. What do I need to buy? And that kind of thing. So it would kind of cover every bigger Volkswagen or high-performance engine than just, okay, this book is going to build a 2332 with 11-to-1 compression.
You hear that, car tech? It sounds like he's got a plan here.
They already went with somebody else. So the book's written.
Oh, okay.
It's nothing like I was going to put out. But the publisher just needed a guy to write a high-performance Volkswagen book. They found a guy to write it, and he wrote it, and they published it. I can't see it selling very well, but you never know. I wouldn't. So
you're saying you could have done better?
Oh, I could have done way better.
Okay. That's where I was going at. Well,
yeah. Well, and a lot of people could have. You wonder why none of the big engine builders are authors?
Why not?
That's a lot of work, and it's a very small payoff. Why hasn't any of these big motor shops, why don't they write a book about how to build motors? They don't have time.
Well, the first thing is a lot of these, you're an engine builder, you're not an author. I mean, the same troubles that you faced when you were writing this book.
Right. They have the same.
You kind of had to.
They have
you
the
kind of had to
same
figure
problem.
it out. A lot of these engine builder, these big shops. I mean, they're making money doing this and that.
Yeah,
they don't have the.
They don't need a book.
Yeah, they don't need a book.
Right.
The only reason I approach you about why didn't you write a second book, because I mean you do that. You build performance motors. And the book that you wrote.
See, the thing is, you can buy the book I wrote and build a high performance motor. I go over deck height and compression ratio and CC and heads, all the stuff you would do with any size performance motor.
Yes and no. I agree. Yes, I used your book when I was building my performance motor. But there's a lot of little things or big things that aren't covered in the book. That I called you once a week, said, "Hey, I'm at this step."
I don't go over. You don't rocker arm geometry.
You don't go. We'll break it down. You don't go
push
about
rod length, all that. Yeah, balance and pistons, balance and stuff. I mean, I don't go through any of that. I mean, and most of the time nobody's. I mean, I do it, but most people, they got to send it to a shop and have them balance them. Here, balance my rods. Here's balance my crank. Here, balance my piston. You got to. Even I have to take a crank in. I can't.
Yeah, you don't.
I can't balance a crank.
But you can balance rods, you can balance pistons, and that's a step that people, if they're in their house, their future
right,
book,
and I would have went over that if I wrote another book. I would have went.
That's
over,
all I'm saying is those are the little steps
what entails it. I could have went to the machine shop and took pictures of them balancing my crank and all that stuff. Then you would know what to do. But they want to know why I should balance my crank and when I need to balance my crank. They don't need to know how to balance the crank. They just want to know the why and how, but they don't need to actually have to know.
But a crank is something that you can't do in house. I'm just talking more like the connecting rods, the pistons.
Sure, I love balancing pistons.
The valves, making sure your deck height is correct.
Balancing pistons is probably my favorite thing. It's a fun little job.
It's tedious. It's very tedious.
Especially when you have one super light and all of the other three need to get down to that.
Or like when you buy brand new rods and one is way off. And
Yeah.
they're brand new out the box. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the better rods you buy, the better they're going to be balanced. I mean, and it's just the way it is.
I did tell you I was poor, right? We covered that in the first episode.
Well, see, poor and high performance do not go together.
Yes, they do. Not well, but they do go together.
I mean, it's like asking somebody how slow they want to go. How slow do you want to go? Oh, you have no money? Oh, you want to go really slow then.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say I was broke. I just said I'm poor.
I understand. Yeah. You want the best bang for your buck. And that's what everybody's looking for. What's the best bang for the buck? Some people, they get, oh, you don't need anything bigger than a 1776 in your car. I'm like, really? I beg to differ.
Now, a 1776 is a good solid motor, though. It's reliable, right?
Oh, yeah. They're all reliable. I mean, I have a 2110 in my daily driver. That motor's been together for, I don't know. Okay. But you can't drive a stroker motor.
But how much more is entailed in a 2110 versus a 1776?
The only difference is you got a clearance for stroker.
Okay.
That's the only
difference.
Yeah.
It's
90.5 millimeter piston, same amount of head work, machine work. The only extra machine work is the clearance for the stroker. And you gain, I don't know, 400 cc's or something.
And how much in price are you stepping up from a 1776 to a 21?
Well, the price of a crank.
Okay.
Price of a crank. And
pistons and jugs are pretty much the same price. The head work is probably...
A or B pistons are the same price.
Okay.
Rods, well, I don't know if you're buying better rods. And rods are relatively cheap,
Yeah, they're not bad.
You can shop around, and it's how much you want to spend. It kind of makes me mad at times that the price of cylinder heads are all over the map. I mean, you can get brand new heads for $200. You can get brand new heads for $1,000. I mean, and most people don't know the difference.
Only if they had a performance book that somebody named Prescott Phillips would write, and then we could read it in the book.
Nah, not gonna happen. Just buy the book I wrote and fill in the blanks with internet, with YouTube videos.
Yeah. Or just reach out to Prescott at BCBugTalk@gmail.com and ask him all the questions.
Yeah, you can ask all the questions you want. Just email us. I'll probably do most of the answering. Yeah, it's BCBugTalk@gmail.com.
Our pointless plug right there. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, they need to know how to get a hold of us. I'm not giving out my phone, even though it's not that hard to find online, but just I don't answer it anyway. So
you'll go on the block list.
Yeah, you'll be on the block list if I don't know you. Put somebody on the block list this morning. You call my number and I don't recognize the number and you don't leave a voicemail. You're on the block list. About every other day, I put somebody on the block list.
Where can you find this book? Let's cover. We didn't cover that. Where can you go right now?
You can find it anywhere. It's if you're not a internet shopping guy, you can go to Barnes and Noble. It's at every Barnes and Noble. If you want to actually look at it first and then buy it, it's everywhere. Amazon, eBay. You can buy it directly from me. You can buy it directly from CarTechBooks.com. Just search out the Volkswagen books. There's a couple of them. I have copies myself that I ship out, me personally, just because people they want one from me, which is good because I make the most money that way.
And one cool thing about buying it from Prescott himself is you get an autographed copy.
Yeah, I'll sign it.
Oh, thanks. More editing for me.
Yes, more editing.
Very cool. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up this show unless there's anything else that you want to discuss.
No, I think that pretty much covered it.
I just want to take a quick second and say thank you to my buddies Jim Baker and Baja Steve. They're the ones that let me borrow their books so I could do some homework for this episode. So special thank you to those guys. And I think our next show that we're going to be talking about some of the Milwaukee area car shows.
Not only the Milwaukee area ones, but
I guess, yeah, we're going to...
Midwest.
That'd be a better title for it.
Midwest and some of the Volkswagen only ones and what's coming up in 2024 as far as what we're going to do car show wise.
Yeah. All right, very cool. And if you guys got any questions or comments about today's show, feel free to reach out to us at bcbugtalk@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook. Before we let you go, I just wanted to take a moment and let you know some of these episodes are pre-recorded. And after we recorded this episode, we got the tragic news that Prescott's brother Peter had passed away. Prescott talks about Peter in this and previous episodes. He mentioned that Peter was the one who inspired him to get into Volkswagens. So I just wanted to take a moment and send my condolences to Prescott and his family as they go through this tragic time, and thank him for sharing his stories and memories of his brother Peter with all of us. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.
Talk to you later.